So welcome everybody. This is the Grolier Poetry Bookshop's virtual reading series. I think this is the 5th event in our virtual reading series. We've had some great events so far. And this one we're holding at a different time because we have poets calling in from all over Nigeria. Usually we do on Thursday nights, but it's midday Saturday. But we are super excited to have you all calling in from so far away. This event is especially near and dear to our hearts because my father, the late Ifeanyi Nkidi, was an African philosopher and poet, and he owned the Grolier for the last 14 years with my mother. And he was a huge believer in, the contributions of that Nigerian humanities has to give to the world. I know a lot of our Nigerian parents like to talk about us becoming lawyers and doctors and engineers, but he strongly felt that the humanities had a huge contribution to make to dialogue in Nigeria and on the continent, and to address the world's biggest social issues at large. So I know he's smiling down, knowing that we're hearing from some up and coming Nigerian poets today. So I'm just going to give a brief introduction. I think Adedayo is going to start out, and then he can say a few words about the anthology if you'd like. And then at the end, if anyone has a few questions for the poets. I will try to do my best with the pronunciations. I don't speak Igbo or Yoruba, so it might not be great. But welcome, welcome. We're so glad that you're here with us today. So we're going to start with Adedayo Agarau. I don't know if I said that right. Adedayo is the 3rd place winner of the Frontier Industry Prize 2020. His chapbook, Origin of Names, was selected by Chris Abani and Kwame Dawes for New Generation African Poet in 2020. He's the author of 3 chapbooks, For Boys Who Went and The Arrival of Rain and The Origin of Name. Adedayo was shortlisted for the Babashai Niwe Poetry Prize in 2018, runner-up of the Savage Poetry Prize 2019, and he's the editor for the New International Voices at IceFloe Press and the assistant editor at Animal Heart Press. His works have appeared or are forthcoming in Agbowó, Frontier Poetry, Glass Poetry, Mineral Lit, Perhappened, Thames, Linden Avenue, Headway Lit, The Shore, and elsewhere. Adedayo curated and edited a new poetry anthology by Nigerian poets, Momento, an anthology of contemporary Nigerian poetry, which we're celebrating today. He's a member of the Serious Collective. Welcome, Adedayo.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It's so, like I said, it's so pleasant to be here. Am I supposed to read, or I'm supposed to talk about the anthology?
You can introduce the anthology and then read a couple poems if you'd like.
Okay. So yes, I'm very glad that this event is holding. The Nigerian poetry has been blooming for years. Before I was born, there's been there has been the interesting works of the likes of Wole Soyinka, J.P. Clark, and as at then they were contemporary poets. And in 2007 or 2008, I collected a book from a junior, a student. I was a prefect in school, in my high school. So I collected, he was reading a book on the assembly ground. So I collected the book and I kept it in my bag. And I left it at home. I didn't remember to return the book to him. 2 years later, I found the book, and that was in 2009, 2010. And then I found it. I thought I left the school already. So I thought that one day I was going to return the book. And that was it. The title of the book was West African Voices, that collected the poems of J.P. Clark, Senghor, Wole Soyinka, Cyprian, and a lot of other fantastic poets as at then. And I remember reading the poem Ibadan by J.P. Clark. I was living in Ibadan then, and nothing happened. Nothing happened. 2 years after, I think 2012, on To Go, I met Razak Malik. To Go is a social network, a social networking app. I met Razak Malik, whose poetry fascinated me and then actually made me want to write. And in 2013, I started to write officially. I'm telling this story because every poet has his or her own story as to how they started writing or why they started writing. When I started writing, I didn't know why I was going to be writing, or I just wanted to write. Between those years, there were a few other anthologies that came out. I am a product of an anthology, I guess. But we need to collect voices. We need to document voices because it's a science of time. People are always living. People are always coming. But we need to create either digital or physical footprints of works that people are doing. Fantastic work of the likes of contemporary poets like Romeo Oriogun, Itiola Jones, Benga Adesina. There are a lot of Nigerian writers who are doing amazing work in the global sphere. And we all, by the time, at the time we were thinking about this anthology, we were also thinking of an opportunity to collect the voices of emerging writers and the ones who we would presume as established writers. So the Memento, as an anthology of contemporary Nigerian poetry, attempted and successfully collected the voices of both the young and the not so young Nigerian writers who are doing fantastic work, poets that we know before and poets that we've never heard of, poets whose first publication was the anthology, writers whose first anthology was that anthology, writers whose groundbreaking moments was that we created moments for people and for ourselves, because we are going to keep talking about this anthology because it's an amazing collection. It's a collection of memory, so to speak, a collection of memory. So yes, I would say I'm using this opportunity to say thank you again to my team, Wale, and to my team, Agbaakin Jeremiah, Patrick Nome, Adebayo, Elizabeth Orain, and everyone at Animal Art Press. So yes, I'll be reading 2 poems today. I'll be reading one from the anthology and another one that I have just written. So the title of this one that I'm reading is Rainmakers from the anthology. My father told me that his father told him that there were men who sheeted the sky with their tongues, men who paddled clouds in their canoes, whose farmhouses were fireplaces, whose mouths were thunderclaps, men who fetched storms from their water pots, made stars out of bongo drums, stunned history with songs, dazzled God with the language of their feet, men who harnessed rain out of wind, out of shadow, out of the water breaking between their woman's laps, men whose names reinvent God's silence. Thank you. Okay, so yeah, this is the second poem. I'm trying to collect a collection of I'm trying to collect a full collection of poems surrounding grief and how I am managing grief of my grandmother's passing, and I've been introspecting a lot. I've been feeling a lot. So this is a poem that's supposed to go into the book, but it's not about my grandmother. Omo Ibanuje. Omo Ibanuje means child of sadness or child of sorrow. I am the aching my mother dreamt of, the passing of thunder through Azan Street into the yellow house beside the old stalls. I am the shrill, the somber disaster welled from inside her throat, our offering of sorrow pinching years houses away. I am the shadow leaving the body, the room turned out of light. I am the drums waiting for songs, the sadness at the beginning before we knew why we were sad. I am the writer and the wailer. I am the corpse, the one digging the grave. I am the one passing the days at the funeral, stranger decked in black with my mother's sisters. I am the one eating red oil beans with my siblings, the littlest of them asking, Brother Dayoda. I am the one eating red oil beans with my siblings, the littlest of them asking, Brother Dayoda. I was the lightning that found the yellow house worthy of grief. I am the one that stayed after the grief smeared blood over the effigy of Ogun, the iron door tasting my blood and spitting it against the wall. I am the stories told of pregnant women who walked in the sun at noon, that a god walked the earth searching for vessels to wear. I was the one who pressed the neck of a fetus and kept myself inside a womb. I was a child who refused to cry till the nurse slapped my back and pat it with disdain. Listen, I refuse to cry because I uttered grief. Thank you.
Thank you, Adedayo. That was wonderful. And thank you for explaining sort of how you came to work on this anthology. Next, I think we are going to hear from Agbaakin, Jeremiah Agbaakin. Jeremiah Agbaakin holds a law degree from the University of Ibadan. His poems are recently published in Guernica, Pleiades, Poet Lore, Poetry Northwest, Rattle, West Branch, and elsewhere. He placed second for the Grist Journal Pro Forma contest and was a finalist for the Chad Walsh chapbook series, Beloit Poetry Journal, Black Warrior Review Contest, and the Sillerman First Book Prize for African Poets. A former editor and reader for Africa in Dialogue, Pank, Jalada Africa, and Newfound Journal. He's currently the poetry editor of Yaba Left Review. He resides in Oxford, Mississippi, where he's studying for his MFA at the University of Mississippi. Welcome, Jeremiah.
Thank you for the introduction, and thank you, Dayo, for the electric reading. There's a lot of grief leading in those poems, and they are very moving. Yeah, so because of that, I would like to top it up with a slightly happier poem. I don't know how happy you may find it, but hopefully just to make the atmosphere less sad. Yeah, so I'll be reading two poems. The first one is outside the anthology that we created, and then the second one will be from the anthology itself. Yeah, so the first poem, Jephthah 2, Akire's daughter pitches a victory song. For what are we but song slaves, flesh chained to the bones, the soft percussion of our bodies coming too close. There's a music for coming apart too. It could be a voice, but now it is Waje on radio, a piano note treading and growling, the orb of cymbals lifted from the maiden's sweaty palms. That were once feast, that could be feast, a surrender instead, a song, like mother wincing from the repercussion and percussion of bones. Here, cymbals, here, tambourine, here, timbrel, the tusk of a beagle, like a minaret raised to the sky, to hoist the sun forever like the fathers did. The beagle droops, the battle stoops, something rises from the mist, and it is my father. Yeah, so the second poem, one moment. Yeah, so the second poem is from the anthology, because the anthology is the focus of this gathering today. So, stilt workers in Babylon. The foreman's echo from the pinnacle. Why does it get colder when we reach to God? By depth or height, in death or flight, his voice distant as a marrow gurgle in a tailbone. We did not take risk as bats. We seal the hollow that makes us light in the fall, our tongue gliding the wrong way. We wave egrets that once rode oxen as we do the horse back and dream of unicorns. But the folly is clear. Make a minaret that pierces God. Dig the moat wide enough for a little exchange, a room for a second meaning. The serpent dangles a twig wide with tiny berries like keys to a god. The fruit opening her hunger on one end, licking sap on the other. A wound that bleeds out the old language. Trained builders, we wear helmets and breastplates. We protect every body part, save the tongue. Tell me why God called in my language isn't strong unless we borrow elsewhere. We continue to dig the sky for the arc of a rainbow. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremiah. All right, next up we have Pamilerin Jacob. Pamilerin Jacob is a Nigerian poet and editor whose poems have appeared in Barren Magazine, Agbowó, Poetry Potion, Palette Poetry, IceFloe Press, Lit Quarterly, and elsewhere. He was a second runner-up for the Savage Poetry Prize 2019. A Best of the Net and Pushcart Prize nominee, his poems also appear in Memento. He serves as a mentor in the Spring Fellowship and is a member of the Unserious Collective. He is also the managing editor of the African Writers, founding editor of Aramite Poetry, and Poetry Ambassador Nigeria for the Global Poetics Project. Author of the chapbook Gospels of Depression and curator of poetry column in Nigerian News Direct, a national newspaper. Welcome.
Hello. Hello, everyone. Thank you for the introduction. So I'll be reading two poems. Thank you, Jeremiah, to Adedayo, and I can see Jakky. Thank you. So I'll be reading two poems, one from the anthology and a different poem, Places, but I'll start with the other one. This poem is titled Lazy. I wrote it when my dog died. A couple of, I think Diane knows this poem. So there's an epigraph there by Natasha Trethway that goes, I was asleep while you were dying. Again and again, this constant forsake. That's the epigraph. So kept wagging after the match had finished the school aside. And I, miles away, was busy scribbling poems, trying to forget the executioner's face. For 5 weeks, you carried on your left side in dreams, though you knew the futility of the hunt. Still, you kept at it. My noble warrior, running after each bed as though in them you saw your reincarnation, your blue future devoid of leashes and veterinarians. You can't hear the ball, no pops. I never saw the body, but 2 days after you were taken, I heard the squeal at the backyard. The sound of a balloon when it sports, a loud exit wasn't you, but the grief and its wicked conjuring. Blessed be the execution silence between you and the boundless wind. I detest him, but blessed be his machete called to the Wuku enterprise. I am dying too, albeit slowly. Something swells in me nightmare. I do not want to talk about it, but like you, I want to gallop after pigeons and dream. In this, you are my ancestor, passing down the right of pointless pursuance. From you, I have come to learn nothing is worthy of ambition. Voracious eater, I bet you beat into death like a mango, douse your chin with wetness. I'm buying a cat soon, Lacey. Please do not haunt me for this. So thank you. That's the first poem. And then the second poem is from...
Pamilerin, can I ask you to, the connection is not great, so it's hard to hear you sometimes. Is it possible to maybe put the text of the poem in the chat so people can follow along Because your voice cuts in and out a little bit. If
Oh,
not,
I
it's
see.
okay. It's just I wanted to hear
I don't
every
know how to
word.
do
And
the screen.
or you could
or
just
every
cut and
word.
paste it in the
I
chat.
could go. But the thing is, I'm using my phone and I'm reading from my laptop. So
Oh,
perhaps
okay.
when I'm
Maybe when you're
yes,
done.
that's what's
Yeah.
happening.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay. For those that have the second poem I'll be reading, I'm going to read from the anthology. So okay, someone said I should switch off my camera. That works. But I hope it gets clearer this way. So I'll be reading this poem from the anthology. It's titled Analysis of a Mother's Cry. Analysis of a Mother's Cry. So for those that have the anthology with them, they can turn to that page. Analysis of a Mother's Cry. Say in a woman's throat, angels are groaning as she watches her seed melt into sand. A boy is peeled by a SARS officer with shaky hands and a gun that loves to misfire. Say her seed's name is Oluwatimileyin, meaning God is my backbone. Meaning upon peeling the boy, we find God seated in a room holding his spine like a guitar string. Meaning the mother has a point when she says she will not allow him be buried, because to bury the boy is to bury her God. Say a woman's cry can rip open God's eardrum, spreading thin in mud, God like boys peeled onto elephant grass. This is to say the spirit of a boy travels faster than his falling body, and a mother's cry is prehistoric. The tears of an unknown mother killed the dinosaurs
Lose
when
him.
they ate our son. What'd you say?
I think you're back now.
Oh, okay. I guess it's the network or something. It's really breaking down the audio. Is it clearer now?
Better now, yeah.
Okay. I don't want to start. I don't want to start from the beginning, but I don't know where the network cut off. So, well, the poem I'm reading is Analysis of a Mother's Cry. It's in the anthology. So, say in a woman's throat, angels are groaning as she watches a seed melt into sand. A boy is peeled by a SARS officer with shaky hands and a gun that loves to misfire. Say her seed's name is Oluwatimileyin, meaning God is my backbone. Meaning upon peeling the boy, we find God seated in a room, holding his spine like a guitar string. Meaning the mother has a point when she says she will not allow him be buried, because to bury the boy is to bury our God. Say a mother's cry can rip open God's eardrum, spread him thin in mud, God like boys peeled onto elephant grass. This is to say the spirit of a boy travels faster than his fallen body, and the mother's cry is prehistoric. The tears of an unknown mother killed the dinosaurs when they ate our son. In my country, animals eat budget allocations, eat children in classrooms. So we cook our mislock atop a pile of burning bodies. It is said, till date, a perpetual flame ravages Borno, where girl has become a synonym for IEDs, where Leah is bargaining cheap between terrorists and government. I know my country is a mother in labor, placenta hard as a knuckle, a scream shattering diamonds. Say soon a miracle we unspool within her, and every part of her will gleam. Thank you. That's the second poem. Thank you, guys.
Wow, that was powerful. Thank you. Next up, we have Jakky Bankong-Obi. Jakky Bankong-Obi writes from Abuja, Nigeria. Jakky is co-editor at IceFloe Press, and her work is forthcoming in London Grip, the Kalahari Review, Patchwork Lit Magazine, Gutter Magazine, Hobart Pulp, Pidgeonholes, and Memento. Welcome, Jakky.
Okay, sorry, I forgot I was on mute. Okay, thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you, Ndidi. Thank you, everyone, for coming. I'm really honored and grateful to be part of this anthology. I think it was one of the first places I submitted to when I started writing poetry. I don't know how I saw it. I think I saw it on Twitter, the advert on Twitter, and I got into it. And like they say, the rest is history. Okay, so I'll be reading two poems. I'll be reading one from the anthology, Bongaville. Then I'll be reading Summer in Lake Chad, which was published from Reliqué Journal. Well, basically my poetry is nature and place inclined. So I'm just gonna be doing some nature poetry reading. Okay, so first one, Bongaville. My fingertips, scented and nectar sweetened, fettered in dry season blossoms, tender and spike shorn, split raw with familiar ache, Bongaville. The blooms, bold and vining, petals skyward pointing, as if praying, all votive, the way humans yearn for beauty, avid and ravenous, like a candle lit and flickering, races to burn itself out. Eager, I pluck at them and leave bits of myself, human sacrifice for the perennial altar, because beauty rarely leaves you unscathed. When she touches you, she splits you open, tender soft, like new birth, a sacred thing. Okay, so the second one, Summer in Lake Chad. October winds into the lake's basin and the leaves retreat to safety. The soil, prismatic and filigreed as an egg, familiar enough to expect it. And because no one stops time in the endoheric, the sun of spring September brown, and browning still, fields of elephant grass, papyri and reed pickle, then vanish in the wilt. Heat stroked, baobab and acacia bark break, offload to wax, then congeal. Remember, everything begins with optimism. In the mother tongue, there are 7 possible translations for any tree. It's true we were once a forest, but we never tried hard enough. Plundering its ceaseless vehemence, the heat crowns everything in petaled fire. Nothing left to green or extant, not water, oil, or salt, meaning nothing we could keep on the body prevails. And as the scarcity eventuates, the topography leaches, then fossils. Laid bare, the bones rattle and call out to their bygone history. And the answer is a thirsty truth in the mouth of an African summer, once restless with other nestings. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have another one or is that it?
Oh, that's it. That's it.
That's it, okay. Thank you, it was beautiful.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Adebayo Kolawole Samuel. Sorry, that's my toddler. Kolawole Samuel Adebayo is a Nigerian poet whose works have been published in Button Poetry, Glass Poetry, the Hellebore Press, and elsewhere. His chapbook manuscript, Invocations, was recently selected by Chris Abani and Kwame Dawes for the APPF New Generation African Poets Chapbook Box Set Series. He currently lives in Ankuru, Ondo State. Welcome, Adebayo.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much, indeed. It's so good to be here. Can you hear me, please? Let me know if you can hear me. I'm not sure if everybody can hear me.
I can hear you.
Oh, okay, great. So, all right, so thank you once again for the privilege to be here. I'm so excited. and a little bit nervous. You know, I don't get to do this very often. So I have a book, so I'll just go ahead and do some bit of reading. I read two poems, one from the book, and then another poem from me. So I like to use a lot of traditional allusions in my poetry. You would find a lot of the Yoruba language in my poetry. The Yoruba language is one of Nigeria's several indigenous languages. And so in case you do not understand some part of those, just try to follow. I'm sure you'd get it. So this poem from the anthology is Noah. I particularly like it because there's just a way it resonates with me. You know, the poem was written by Ejiofor Ugu. A heaven, sorry, I have to use sorry. A heavy rain pulls at the roots of hibiscus flowers planted round his grave. So the poem again is Noah for my father. A heavy rain pulls at the roots of hibiscus flowers planted round his grave and seeps all morning into the soil. I measure the weight of the rain from the watermarks at the edges of the grave. The ground bearing the water down at its own pace. I see the ark rising, safe and full. That's the poem, Noah. Quite a short poem, but I like it a lot. So this other poem is titled The Horse and the Rider. It's one of the poems in the chapbook that is coming from Akashic Books this year. The Horse and the Rider. And Miriam answered them, sing ye to the Lord, for he hath triumphed gloriously. The horse and its rider hath he thrown into the sea. Exodus 15, verse 21. In the beginning, they gallop as if they ride into a procession of victory songs. For the sea inside my body drowns with the horse and the rider inside me. It's such grief. My body, which was made for me, is also against me. I walk forward, but I always end where I began. Ejiobi, like a door without a key, I must be torn down before the possibility of an exit or entrance. In search of deliverance, I commune with all the deities. Lift up your head, O ye gates, and be ye lifted up, ye everlasting doors. By the river bank, I invoke all the spirits with an offering of kola nuts. Take these, all you who dwell in the sea and in the air and beneath the land. Take these and give me an exit from this realm of grief. Take these and give me an entrance into this realm of neon and rainbow. May the horse and its rider no longer be thrown into the sea. May the sea inside my body be quiet as the grave. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Wow. I love the allusions. Thank you. And last we have Hauwa Shaffii Nuhu. Hauwa Shaffii Nuhu is a Nigerian poet and essayist whose work has appeared in Popular, Ake Review, Brittle Paper, After the Pause Journal, The Bitter Oleander, and elsewhere. She is a 2018 fellow at the Abedi Writers Residency. Welcome, Hauwa.
Okay, so she texted me that she's in transit and that she'll join us later.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, hopefully we'll do some announcements and maybe she'll join us by the time we finish up. But I guess first, thank you all. That was really a special treat. I wish I should have asked you to each do an extra poem I want to hear more. But, you know, this is really, really nice for us because sometimes we have, you know, we try to have a good range of poets, from Indian poets, you know, Croatian poets, of course, a lot of American poets, but we don't often hear from a lot of poets from Africa. So this is a special treat. And thank you, James, for organizing all of this. Does anyone have any questions for the poets or for Adedayo about the collection, or any comments? Unmute yourself if you.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm wondering at what age any of the poets might be willing to share with us at which they self-determined themselves as poets, or knew that poetry was the voice they wanted to adopt for expression.
That's interesting.
Okay. Okay. I don't normally go first. I like seeing how people tackle questions and addresses something before I can. Yeah, that's a very good question. It's a question because it's a question of influence, and it is one area that I'm always exploring in poetry. That apart from poetry, I'm interested in literature and tradition. So I don't think there was a day where my mind was fully made up that okay, I was going to be a writer. But
I ask you to, if you're not speaking, to mute yourself.
Yes, so I have this weird belief that we are poems, we are being written by like we are actually creating, we are being created by poetry actually. So I believe that we've always been poets, whether you are 1 year old, whether you're 2 year old, there's this innate ability. But just like Jakky Brown said, he said there's a danger in having the skill alone without pruning that skill. So by reading other poets that resonate with you, and I'm speaking for myself, I'm sure that other poets in this gathering actually agree to some extent. So I believe that we might be lucky to come across a particular book that becomes a touch in our hands, like Ocean said, we may be lucky to find a book that becomes a touch in our hands, and then we begin to find our voice in that touch. We begin to want to write like that because that is how we've always wanted to write, but we never found somebody that can show us the touch. But to be more specific, I think I started writing poetry at the age of maybe 16, and it all started with writing in other genres like historical fiction and all that. But one thing I realized about writing in that genre was that my language was poetic. I'm not the best storyteller, but I think the language that I used to write to explore other genres were kind of poetic. So when I realized that I could write poem, it was inevitable for me to write poems because I studied, I was an art student in secondary school, so we read poems, we had to write poems. It was automatic. So, but then when we began to take it serious was when we started seeing other writers, we see what they can do, and we imitate, obviously. We imitate, and then we just, by stroke of luck and by stroke of due diligence, reading a lot, reading wide, which I highly encourage, we've come across that particular writer or that particular book or books that we think gives us the map to explore our own voice. I don't like the idea of saying, when did you find your voice? Because I think we all have voices, biologically speaking. But when we find our voice that resonates with us, that sharpens our psyche, I think it's always a beautiful moment. It's always a moment of magic. But it takes years. We are all revising. We are revising that voice. So I don't know, maybe that question is well answered. But thanks for the question, nevertheless.
I like what you say, how we all are born with a voice and we're all poets, even babies. But at the same time, it's, poetry is this use of words, and words are like music, and different languages have different type of music. So I love hearing, the Igbo words or the Yoruba words, the names, the references, because even in different countries and cultures that speak English, there's kind of a different approach to the language, different turns of phrases, different words and stuff. So it's really special to hear from different parts of the English speaking world. Yeah.
Okay, so I think I would like to answer the question also, because I find myself coming into poetry quite accidentally. I would never have thought that poetry was, I don't think I even enjoyed reading poetry per se. I never looked at it as something I wanted to get into. Career-wise, I had done a bit of media communications, and then around, publishing sort of, but I never gave writing itself, a thought as something I wanted to get into or do. But I remember I was just like 2019. I think I was 35 or 37, and then I used to run my personal Instagram page where I used to put like nature pictures, and then maybe I just do like a short quotes, or something, the way I was feeling. Maybe on my walk, I took a picture and I'll just put something there. And I remember, I think it was January 2019, or was it December 2018 now? My elder brother, just sent me this really funny. I mean, if you know how elder brothers in Nigeria can be, they're like your dads or something. So he just sent me this message where he was like, "Hello, how are you today?" and something. These are a few places I think you should send those short things you write on your Instagram page to. It was just really like this command thing, and I was like, okay, fine. And then I just used to write like 4, 5, 6 lines, things like that. And I don't know, for some reason, I sent it around, and some crazy editor in the London group decided he wanted to publish one of my poems. And I think that's how it just started, and it was like, okay, really, this can work. And, I got into it, and then I saw the advert for the anthology also. I think one of those times I came on Twitter. I wasn't really using my Twitter around that time, but I just came on and I saw this tweet. I don't know who retweeted it, how it got to my timeline, and I had just written this bunch of poems. I didn't know if they were good or bad, but they just seemed like something to try for. And, that's how I came into poetry. But like Jeremiah said, I don't know about my voice per se. I don't know what it means really. I think as you write, as you go along, and sometimes as you find issues that resonate with you and that call, something from you and you want to respond to, I think you go along that way. So for me too, it's really been reading poetry, just enjoying the experience of experiencing poetry per se. And when I find poems that I like, that speak to me, sometimes it's like, I just want to write something like that, or, as we just go along, just telling our stories, using our voices as they come up. That's how I found myself doing this with these wonderful people, and I'm here today. So that's it, really accidental, not a career choice. I mean, I do have my day job, never thought it's something I could get into. So it was just accidental. And I often refer to myself as an illiterate poet because, I never studied for this, never read anything. I've never even been to a literature class per se, even in, in high school, secondary school, never. I was a scientist, back then. So this was just accidental, but I'm really enjoying the experience.
Thank you. Anyone else want to share how they came to poetry?
I think that's Adedayo's area of expertise. He can he can tell us very well about
it. Are you trying to set me up? Okay, so I feel like I talked about this when the reading was starting, when we were about to start reading, about how I met Razak Malik. I think one thing that is spectacular about my story is that I didn't think that years before, when I used to write rhymes, rap rhymes, on Facebook. I mean, so Facebook has been doing something that's been bringing me memories of 10 years ago. It has been bringing memories from 10 years ago, stuff that I wrote on my Facebook, rap rhymes, rhymes that just come to me, and that I would frame them in verses and all. I didn't know that I was setting myself up for poetry. I like, so this validates Jeremiah's stand that even newborns are poets before they eventually start to write. My grandfather used to write music before he died. He wrote songs for legends, and I'm proud of him. And I didn't know these stories until I started to write, and then my dad decided to sit me down and tell me stories of how one day when I was a baby, after I was healing from an accident, he sat me on his laps, and then he prayed for me. I mean, I technically still think about it. So I feel like he was on his dying bed, and then he prayed for me as a baby. So there was an impartation of poetry or impartation of creativity that was going on. I wouldn't know, but poetry is more of an indwelling and then a building on the foundation. So for every poet, it takes an infilling. It takes a natural talent to envision, to imagine, to create, to write verses. When I bumped into the To Go group where Madu Chisholm, Graciano, Razak Malik were writing, they were communicating in poetry, and I was like, oh Jesus, where have I been? So I studied. I was on the group for like 5 days, 6 days before I decided to text someone, and I texted Razak Malik because I enjoyed the way he writes about. He uses nature to write about love, to write about death. He just, his poetry is just centers around very natural things. Apart from, as of 2010, 2012, a lot of writers were still using Shakespearean English to write poetry. And then it was just different. It was really different from them. He was writing in such a way that it would bring it down to you, and then you feel it in your bones that, okay, this is communication. This person is communicating to me. And I when I texted him, he brought me to Facebook, and I started to read his poems and all. And then I'm like, okay, I think I want to try this thing. And then that was the same year, in 2012 was the same year I met Kukogo Samson of Word Rhymes and Rhythms, who edited my first draft ever. I think the title of that poem, I still remember, is The African Boy. The poem was published on the 1st of January 2013 on Word Rhymes and Rhythms Facebook. I would never forget that. I remember taking the poem to my dad to show my dad, and then I rushed to him. He was sitting in the sitting room, he was watching TV, and then I rushed to him that, they published my work and all. And then he just saw it, and then just gave him, I just said, okay. At that point, I feel like the whole enthusiasm shattered, but I did not stop. I started to, then I wasn't exposed to a lot of writers. So I was reading writers who were being published on Word Rhymes and Rhythm. These are the places where, that was the place where I met a lot of my friends now. I got to know the works of Agbaakin Jeremiah, the work of Salah Olajide, and a lot of them who were publishing at that time, because it was a vibrant time in the history of Nigerian poetry. If we are talking about Nigerian poetry and we do not talk about the influence of World Rhymes and Rhythm and Samson Kogo, then the history is not complete. The history is not is almost invalid, because we are talking about contemporary poetry and the work that Samson has done in the landscape. We cannot erase it. So I am grateful for perseverance. I got lucky at some point here, but I also did the work. I also kept writing and reading. At some point, I was doing spoken words, and I remember that they asked me that, okay, in this competition where I was competing for a spoken word award, and then they asked me that, why do I think I would win? I remember saying to them that I would win because I write every day. And yes, that was true. As of 2014, I had time. 2013, I had time. I was writing almost every day. Even though those poems, I am not exactly proud of them anymore, but they are part of my history and story. So I didn't exactly decide to write at a particular age. I found myself writing at some point, and I didn't want to stop because it helps me to express. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to wrap up by encouraging all of you to visit our website, www.grolierpoetrybookshop.org, sign up for our email list, and follow us on social media and keep in touch with us. Let us know, if you're doing other virtual readings, if you have works coming out. If you are in Cambridge, near Harvard, please come by and visit us in the store. We're open part-time now. Hopefully we'll be open more hours soon, but we're right in the heart of Harvard Square. So please come visit us, tell your friends to come visit us. You can purchase Memento on our website, or you can purchase it directly from Animal Heart Press. And I also wanted to let you all know about the Imangini Institute. In addition to owning the Grolier Poetry Bookshop, my father was a philosophy professor, and he, before he died, he launched this initiative to start the Imangini Institute for Comparative Global Studies. And Imangini, the word was, he was coming to it from this concept of, who am I that you have excluded me from the table? Basically, the focus on bringing in excluded voices to the global dialogue to address pressing social issues. So we've just launched, and we've been holding some virtual events in conjunction with the Mandela University in South Africa, where our director works and has a partnership. And we will start having more in-person events in Worcester, where our physical offices are. But I invite you to visit our website and follow Imangini on social media as well. In future, there will be conferences and opportunities for fellowships and stuff. So please keep in touch and let us know what you're up to, and follow both Grolier and Imangini for future events and opportunities. Thank you all so much, and enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate this.
Thank you.